Thanks, Aditya. So we have a esteemed panel here trying to discuss an area which is new and very relevant from today's context standpoint. I welcome all of you. Thanks for joining in for this nice discussion on democratization versus where we stand as far as content is concerned and how does storytelling evolve with this. So let me start absolutely on the left. Oh, my left, your right. So Gunjit, you have been in space, you've been doing different kind of analytical work, different kind of marketing, planning, execution. So do you see that the way the content has democratized over a period of time? That's not a question, actually. Content is well democratized, we all know that, and part and parcel. Do you think storytelling has also democratized in the same manner?
Cool. Thanks for the question, and thanks for having us here. Super excited to be here. Was here a year ago as well. Vineeth and I were on the same panel actually, so it seems like a tag team that we've got here. So I'll start off by sharing an anecdote of what I experienced last week. So last week I was in rural Gujarat, 150, 160 kilometers away from Rajkot. So we went to the village. We got lost on the way, so we were slightly late to the household. And when we got there, the person that we were supposed to meet, which was the house lady, she said, "You guys are late. I had a meeting in the morning." So we apologized, really sorry. She said, "Don't worry, I did it online." So we were like, okay, that's cool. Rural Gujarat, she did the meeting online. Then after that, when we were chatting with the person, my attention was actually at her two kids, okay? So they were on the charpai, they were lying down, they had their phone up, YouTube was running. One after the other, they were watching YouTube shorts. And for 1 hour, while my colleague was talking to the consumer, I only was watching that. And it was content of all types, shapes and forms. There was content about something to do with agriculture. There was somebody who was playing a game in rural India, a little boy. There was K-pop. There was something from Bollywood. There was something from Tollywood. There was also, a boy digging his nose, and they were watching all of that. And they were, one after the other. So yes, absolutely, content is truly democratized because everybody and anybody can create content. There is no doubt about it. They were fully engaged for an hour. The difference was, there were certain shots that they spent time on watching. There were certain shots that they just swapped up. Which shows that the quality of content is where the play is, and that is what I believe we are calling storytelling here, right? So, content creation is clearly democratized. Anybody and everybody can do it. The quality of the content or storytelling makes the content good or bad. And that's where, it will catch up. Technology is really enabling that one as well. It will really catch up. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, I think quality of the content, which is storytelling, is the biggest area of opportunity right now.
Awesome. Any quick reactions from the panel on that?
No, so a different facet to what Gunjit talked about. So democratization, technology aiding democratization is clear, right? We've all agreed for the fact. What it opens up is a host of opportunities for us. So today, take 10 years back, all of us would be creating a storyboard, maybe animatics, test it, make one film, be proud of it, and run it for the entire year, right? But that entire storytelling has kind of altered. So there are so many touch points for us to now create stories. Same brand, same campaign, multitude of touch points. And every place, in every surface that you tell your story is different, right? Whether it's on shorts, whether it's on reels, whether it's in feed, etc., etc. So that's one part of the story. The other angle is how you're telling your story on your own assets. Sometimes it are brand focused assets, or sometimes it is consumer focused. So let me take an example to explain that. Let's say Ashirvad has multigrain. So what it wants to own is a thought leadership on fiber. So what it creates as a storytelling platform is called happytummy.com. So that's the new forms of storytelling. Similarly, if you look at your own D2Cs, it's another way to tell your stories, but you're talking about how customization could be your lever to tell that story. So whether it's Meri Chakki, whether it's classmateshop.com, these are examples of how you're telling your stories differently on a D2C platform. And of course, the kind of stories that you talk about in terms of all e-commerce platforms. So what technology opens up is our ability to tell stories quickly at a cheap cost, relatively, I would say. But I agree with Gunjit that the essence of storytelling, which is holding the creative thought and innovation in the creative thought, is, I think, remains the core and will continue to remain the core.
Okay, thanks, Shuvadip. Any other thoughts, Vineeth or Tushar?
So, good afternoon all. So I just wanted to open out the flip side of what you guys have been talking about. I think, see, we are all on the content marketing and storytelling bandwagon. But, you know, this whole democratization of content that we are talking about, see, one of the things is that now anybody has the power to create content. So earlier we were only competing with each other for share of voice. And now we are really for share of voice and for quality of creative that we are producing as brands. But now we are competing with virtually everybody on planet Earth. Everybody in some one way or the other is a content creator. So, I mean, where really does the thought flow come to brands that is going to surpass or that is going to hold its own against the content that the entire world is creating? You know? So this is something I think is the flip side of what we were discussing.
I mean, I'm going to take another take on it and on storytelling and what impact does the media on which the story is told have on it. So I'll start with a story. I think everybody over here has watched Chak De India, right? I would have. Shah Rukh Khan spoke about 7 minutes for you to, you know, make your dream. Us marketers have sometimes 10 seconds. Because eventually when you go to an IPL or a World Cup final, you can afford 10 seconds as a marketer and you have to tell your story to such a wide audience. This is how the story starts. Deepika Padukone gets out of a car, nice Mustang. She takes a swipe, you know, and opens up a bottle of Bisleri and drinks it, right? Throws it to a group of people who are dancing, says Bisleri, drink it up, flips the bottle, that's your story. Eventually, from a medium perspective, you've got to be conscious of what you're trying to communicate and make sure your messages lands. Because time is of the essence. Now, flipping over to the digital side of it. Now, we wanted to do something on sustainability, right? And what digital as a medium allows you is to tell you longer stories. So we made a film which was around 60 seconds, right? And we wanted to convey the soft side of sustainability, you know, of how plastic belongs in a circular economy and how plastic can be made into benches, clothes. So we had a bird going through all of these really, really emotional instances with the consumers, you know, with school children and ended with the fact that Bisleri is water positive and plastic positive as an organization. But this allowed us to give that message rather than, you know, like a testimonial in a very emotional manner. So the digital medium, in fact, is allowing marketers to have multiple conversations with the consumers and tell the story. So yes, technology is enabling us to tell stories in a more emotional and coherent manner.
Definitely. Thanks, Tushar. I think good perspectives in terms of what content means, what democratization means, and it has, stories exist all around us. It's a question of how to package them and take it back. You use technology sometimes you use other means, you know, which is more emotional or a very human connect. Now, on that point, you know, when we talk about emotional connect, Shuvadip, do you think this emotional connect in the modern storytelling or the digital part of storytelling, do you think it's intact or do you think it's losing its value? Back of the mind, you could also keep the attention span that people today have.
Right. So, I think the few tenets of storytelling is going to be universally present today. It was there yesterday and going to continue. One of the core tenets is emotional storytelling, the human touch, the human connection. Whether you are trying to do that in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or you're trying to do it in the form of a 30-seconder, which we are all happy with in what we have done in the past. It is immaterial of what skin, what surface, what platform you're trying to tell that story. But that human connect, that emotional connect. In fact, my ex-colleague sitting here made a lovely film many years back now, not few, but many years back on Ashirwad. It was called Promise. It was a mother. She had taken her kid to the school and she had told her it was a rainy day and she was saying that, I'll wait for you. The kid says that, are you going to wait for me here? Because that's the confidence. She could have may as well gone back and come back again to pick her up, but she did not. And in that context, he was trying to give the message to the consumers that what we deliver is a promise of quality. So I'm saying that was a long film, in today's parlance, a long film. But when we try to tell the story today, and if Vineeth wants to tell the story today, he will tell it in the 5 seconds, and that's a challenge, I agree. And so and we need to think through. So one of the key concerns, not really concern is not the right word, but the ability to visualize as a marketeer, how will you tell the story differently, but yet in a form which is engaging, connects to the human heart, in whatever secondages and whatever platform you get. I think that's what will tomorrow make a brand stand out. So he was talking about the kids were stopping for some and not stopping for the rest. That is actually what stops the thumb. That connect. Of course, there are other hacks of you will do fast cuts, you will do some AR content, you will do all of those to also, and these are all technology-led interventions. But I think the heart of a brand building will continue to be the human emotion.
Thank you. Gunjit, any reactions to that? You could also play it if you think emotions are being overdone. That's perfectly okay, but you have to tell.
Yeah, so, actually going back to your question, which is technology helping emotion in storytelling or taking away from it? I'm a very, very, very strong believer that it is genuinely helping actually. And it makes it much, much easier for us to connect in the right way emotionally with the people. Because see, emotion is not just heartwarming content that I need to cry and say, oh, after every piece of communication. Emotion is also not always supposed to be humor, that I have to laugh, right? So emotion that you are seeking to evoke from a piece of content depends upon what your communication task is. The shots. The communication task over there is to catch attention. That rural kid who stopped at a K-pop, when I asked her later, hey, you were looking at a lot of stuff, what will you do later? She said, oh, K-pop, interesting laga. I'm going to search for it and see more. So the response that was needed over there in those 5 seconds was not that I love K-pop. Oh, this is interesting. That's the emotional response that you need. And then they will search and watch a 5-minute video also. And maybe a 60-minute show also, right? So one is that, clarification that emotional response is different depending upon the communication task. Second is technology today is making storytelling better. A very, very, very simple example again. Just go back and look at the chatbots on banking apps that used to exist 2-3 years ago. Extremely mechanical, same response to every individual. Today they talk to you like a human. They talk to you better than a real human in many cases. Why? Because generative AI has really made it possible, right? So technology is going to really, really improve storytelling in my view. But I also want to then connect back to something that Vineeth, you mentioned, which is, hey, then great content or good storytelling content is competing with all kinds of content. We are not only competing in our own categories, we are competing with everything, right? So then if technology is going to make good storytelling baseline for everyone, how do you take it a notch up is what is going to be important. And there are ways to do it, and we should chat about that, I think, sometime.
No, that's a fantastic point, that you are not just competing within what is happening inside your category. You have so many brands. If you have like 10 brand portfolio.
Not just brands, I'm competing with Netflix. If
Exactly.
somebody is going to watch that for an hour, they will not watch ads.
Exactly. So it starts with your own portfolio, goes to the category, and then you go beyond the category. You have so much content around. So you are absolutely right there. Any thoughts you have, Tushar or Vineeth, on that? And anything you think stands out in this clutter? How can you create something which is really lasting and has impact?
Yeah. So I think as marketeers, we have to recognize and acknowledge that there are a lot of limitations that we face when we are trying to do what we want to do, which is to impact the behavior of consumers in a way that favors our brand. So what we're essentially trying to do is to elicit some actions from consumers that favors our products, our services, our brands. See, there are a huge number of limitations to it today, I think more so than ever before. Because maybe in the old days, maybe a decade or two ago, we had television, print, radio, outdoor, and advertising was almost a form of entertainment. We were conditioned to watch a program where an ad would come, and then we would actually watch through the ads as well. But this was before the time of scroll and skip. Now, of course, we are up against, we are up against a population which decides to watch what they want to watch. So I think in such a situation, how do you make there's a lot of stuff that is masquerading as content, that pretends to be content, but it really has no impact. It just ticks the boxes of being content, but it really has no impact in terms of noticeability or in terms of any impact on the business. I think some things that we have learned, to answer your question, with experience, I think what we are trying to do is to make the product itself the story. Because very often you have such a tangential connection of the purpose of the brand, etc., to try to make it content, and you create some tangential thing to give it a so-called, within quotes, emotional appeal. But it really doesn't appeal, doesn't really connect, or it's not strongly branded and is not selling the product strongly enough. So what we have started to do, tenet number one, is that if your product itself cannot be the story, then you need to rethink the product that you're selling. And by that I mean, if the ingredients and the formulation and the efficacy and the benefits and the process, whatever that you may have, if these things do not captivate the hearts and minds of at least a few consumers who can become your faithful users, I think then you really have to reevaluate what you are selling. So is your product content worthy? Itself, I think, is a good question to answer, because if it's not, then there is something to tinker with or to change as far as the product goes. So.
I mean, just to add to, I think I quite agree with you. The clutter sometimes is in the marketer's mind as well, where you're trying to overdo things. You've got to understand that this is my 1 or 2 messages at max that I need to give out in a communication. That being one. And the second part is that you need to communicate that message so that it sticks. Now, when you look at emotion especially, I mean, I've done a lot of researches with Gen Zs today, right? They want to be entertained. They've got so much chaos happening in their life. Sometimes they feel like, you show us, yes, there is a cause, we are up for a cause as well, but entertainment is also a form of emotion. That I enjoyed watching this ad. And that sometimes plays a part. So, I mean, we did an ad on our carbonated soft drink brand called Limonata. So we had Aditya Roy Kapoor as an ambassador. And the product truth that we wanted to communicate was that in a world of limey drinks, this has lime plus mint together. So we called the campaign Double the Chill. And it was very simple. Aditya Roy Kapoor comes into a beach and he gets served Limonata by Chunky Pandey. So there is this moment which goes obviously viral there for many reasons. And then every time he takes a sip, he sees 2 fans coming. He sees 2 of everything, right? Eventually, and that message sticks. And we've got great response as far as the online social media world is concerned, with the Gen Z audiences really, really enjoying it. Now, emotion can be happiness or enjoyment as well. And you have to keep it very, very simple.
Kamaljit, if I may just add a point
please.
to what they were talking about. Till now, whatever we were speaking is is completely around the area of advertisement. That's what we think we do better. But in multitude of rounds, and I have seen in some of in the audience, we have kids from colleges who've come. A large chunk of today's India have started to block advertisements in different forms. Some would have gone behind paywall, some may not. Our fingers are always there to nudge on that button called skip and so on and so forth. And when we meet consumers today, so again 5-10 years back, the first ice-breaking conversation with consumers were आजकल टीवी में क्या देख रहे हो? फिर हमने पूछा आजकल फोन पे क्या क्या देख रहे हो? And then the next conversation used to be अच्छा क्या ads याद है आपको? When the same conversation we did, and I think 10 days back I was again doing some consumer immersions, and they were just blank faces, and it was just not one, the next group and the next group. They were blank faces. It was a struggle for people to call out what ad they saw yesterday. And I'm sure all of us sitting in this room will also struggle to tell me what ad they saw on Instagram, which they've opened 5 to 10 times at least in the day since morning. So the point is then, how do we build brands going forward? Is it advertisement? Or is it beyond? So is it value exchange platforms? Is it about what you are going to give consumers? Is it going to be brand first or consumer need first as a platform? I think those storytelling are new learnings for the entire fraternity. And where and the direction that we are all taking to is probably not only trying to build brands and build brand equity through advertisement. So if technology is at play, it probably will help us in building those content pieces quicker. We test them out, we get data at scale today. We know what is working, what is not working, etc., etc. So I think storytelling is taking a new dimension altogether beyond advertisement.
Thanks. I think a fantastic point, but Vineeth wants to react to that.
No, I just want to add to what Shuvadip said about new learnings, and just to elaborate a little bit on the putting the product at the center of the story. Recently, we launched something called Fortune Pehli Dhar mustard oil, which is essentially a first extract. And of course, we decided to call it Pehli Dhar and not first extract, because the category is known by its traditional name, Kachi Ghani Sarso Ka Tel. And it's a humongous category. To make it more story-worthy, we decided to call it a name that would resonate in the vernacular, which is Pehli Dhar. And how can a product lend itself to stories? There are so many evocative things that you can say that becomes interesting content. For example, we know that the first extract of anything, the first few pristine drops, when you squeeze a wild honeycomb, for example, the first few pristine drops of honey, or the first malai that forms on top of doodh, or for those of you who are from coconut country, the first pressed milk of coconut. We know that all these things are precious few drops of the sensorially most enriched produce in terms of taste, in terms of aroma, in terms of just the whole consumption experience. So that can become, so we are building content ideas based on that. There could be a lot of street experiments. For example, in Calcutta, there are a lot of jhalmudi walas. You can have a lot of experiments which become content worthy from a social media perspective on a jhalmudi guy who's using the product, your product versus something that is not Pehli Dhar. There are so many famous eateries. For example, Nandini Hotel in Calcutta. I don't know if you guys have seen all the content around what she creates. And she creates all the Ahelis and the 6 Baliganj places and the QPs of Calcutta, the traditional Bengali authentic places. You can create content with your product, this is what makes Bengali cuisine really stand out. So there's a possibility of a lot of testimonials, influencers, and a lot of traditional stories. If you go to the aristocratic old Khandani, the families from Bihar, UP, they will tell you that they would go to a ghani and get only the first few drops extracted, because they knew that was the most potent in terms of flavor, aroma, etc. So I think people are curious to know more. People are curious to learn more. And there's a lot of evocative content if prepared properly that can be out and out product content. So that is one of the learnings that we are veering towards now. And the other thing is also show product experience. I mean, experience of the product. So that kind of moves one step up, over the telling the product story itself. So content that really showcases the sensorial enjoyment of the product is the other genre that we are working on. So this is some of the ways in which out and out product stuff can become content worthy.
Thank you so much. I think that summarizes it nicely. Jet lag is not working. He's taken a long flight and still, he's on the top of the subject. Thanks. You used influencer. You mentioned influencer. Today, with all the content which is coming in, we know that we could go direct to the consumer. There is an advertisement mechanism. There is a social handle. So many handles we have. So many ways we can go back to the consumers. And then there is this entity called influencers who's really holding and is closer to the ultimate person, ultimate guy. So would you rather do certain DTC campaigns or would you rather use influencers for some hard-hitting messages which are sharp to be delivered? What would you do?
So it depends on the objective. So let me give you some examples to explain myself. Let's say, for example, again, let me take an Ashirwad example. Vineeth is around, so it's always good to take that example.
So, I just don't want to make it 1-0 for you, Shruti. What proportion would you use? Also, so you could answer that.
Yeah, no, so influencers do play a role, whether it's in the top funnel or at the bottom funnel in terms of conversion. It again depends. So, for example, so organic, when you use the word organic, even at the creme de la creme of the society, it's a very fuzzy word. The detailing of that is not very well understood. And then there are a lot of apprehensions कि कोई भी organic बोल देता है पता नहीं है कि नहीं है, etc., etc. So we started a campaign called Sachmuch Organic. And that's where we took mothers to exactly where Ashirwad works in terms of their entire organic crop is grown. Why is it organic? So that bunch of mothers, roughly around 20, 25 of them, they created content. So this is an example of an influencer program to drive top funnel messaging about why it's organic and so on and so forth. Similarly, we are all aware of what is happening when it comes to unboxings and somebody trying to tell you through show than tell, right? The experience and hence convert them to a buy. So I think use of influencers is definitely there. It depends on why you need them and where you need them in the funnel of the campaign.
Great. You want to react to that, Gunjit?
Yeah, completely agree with what Shuvadip said, and I'll, just, if I were to simplify it,
yeah.
Influencers as spokespeople and influencers as a media touchpoint. They play two separate roles. Influencer as a spokesperson is the question of where is the credibility of the communication coming from. An example, Colgate is one of the most trusted brands in the country. People trust Colgate. If I need a spokesperson, Colgate might do a much more credible job than many other influencers. But on the other side, influencers as a touch point, media touch point, if a lot of consumers are spending time consuming content from influencers and not watching branded content, then as a media touch point, you might need them. On the other side, if we launch a completely new brand in India tomorrow, which is not called Colgate, it's called something else, nobody knows that brand, then you need a credible spokesperson. So I think the objectives need to be very, very clear. Credibility versus media touchpoint.
Just to add on to that, the campaign I spoke about, the Deepika Padukone campaign, right? We ended the campaign with a bottle flip with a Bisleri. The idea for us was to say that, drinking water is also cool. This is the OG beverage, right? And that's a message we want to do. And we followed it up with having 30 influencers who did that bottle flip. Many influencers were Tripti Dimri, there was Yuzvendra Chahal and Dhanashri, there was Radhika Madan, there were a lot of dancers, there were a lot of influencers, right? And we wanted that to happen. And heartwarmingly, day before yesterday, I was in my residential society, and I saw a mother and child sit, and they were doing the bottle flip together with the Bisleri bottle. So the message worked. The influencers reinforced the main messaging, and the consumers remembered it. The two can work in conjunction. It's not either or sometimes. You can use them smartly together. Having said that, if you look at certain categories where there is demonstration of the product required, especially look at tech, then influencers are something which are essential to it. Most of the tech brands today work with influencers, and some of the influencers, some of the YouTube owns tech brands today. So that sort of, the category also is important when it comes to influencers versus...
No, I think great points, because, you know, some places brand may be strong enough and it can just go into the field and fight it out for itself. The times when, you know, you could use influencer like technology, you said, where influencers are fundamental, because, you know, you just want them to tell it out to the end consumer. And then there are times when you could do a mix, you know, where, you know, there is some fronting from the brand and then, you know, the influencers take over. So I think that's good learning overall. If you were to say that, you know, you have a budget which is more towards, you know, doing more, rather than reach and frequency, it is more to do performance. You know, pressures are always there to get more, you know, a dollar in, getting the right ROAS. And, you know, you have pressures, you know, to divide that budget, because everything takes a budget and then you have to promote it. What is the heuristic that you would be using? Because storytelling is a long-term thing, you know, it's something which is going to be a base which helps your business. I mean, I'm answering part of your thing, but yeah, it's a base. And, you know, performance is something you load on top of it to make sure that you get it, but you seem to have some answer to it.
I mean, on this, today, as a marketer, I feel that an integrated marketing campaign is in essence what is required, because your story cannot be told in one communication in one medium. Your story has to be continuously told over a number of mediums. I'll give you an example. We want to own hydration as Bisleri, and sports become a big part of hydration. Now we've launched a campaign with some of the best sports people in the country, and with great storytelling and that worked. But what we also did was, we tied up with 5 IPL teams, 6 ISL teams, national game, all the Pro-Cam marathons, ultimate table tennis, taekwondo, every kind of sports available, and that same message was reinforced again and again. And with each of the sports, we got the sports people as influencers for us. We did limited edition packs. So that story was told in crores of packs going into the market. So the story is a long-term play. It is not just those 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 20 seconds in TV. It can be told multiple times. And and the success, true success comes because you then avoid the clutter. You're present in so many different mediums that your message gets to the consumer eventually.
Anybody wants to react from that?
On your question on what about brands or products that are looking for more conversion to sales, performance, you said. So I think, see, this whole concept of a marketing funnel, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, etc. It may not always be the only way to do things. Very often your awareness about a brand and the interest in the brand and the desire to try and the purchase transaction itself may all be collapsed into just one exposure to the brand. So it's essentially an IDA that is collapsed into just a few seconds or a few minutes. So I think when there are limited budgets and you're looking at a more performance kind of an objective for the campaign, the formula is simply to deploy your spends based on reducing returns on investment. So probably on platform spends on e-commerce, for example, would give you the best returns on investment. And then maybe spends on off platform but driving traffic to platforms for transactions or to your own D2C sites. So I think you have a feel of what are the costs of conversion for various kinds of deployments of marketing monies, and then you just sort them in descending order of return on investment, and where your monies end, that's where your cutoff of your spends are.
storytelling is not at risk because of all this. I hope not, yeah. So thanks again, Vineeth, for elaborating on how would you go about when you are looking at performance campaigns vis-a-vis storytelling campaigns. And there are ways you could harness influencers, ways in which the product can be absolutely simple story, and how do you build everything around that. So if we try to summarize and kind of open the field for some questions from your end, I think one way to look at it is that this art of storytelling, which started from oral days to some visual stories to, let's say, some kind of written stories. Written came much later. Actually, oral and visual was much before when you had written. And post-written, you have the digital age. So the digital age is in for the last, a century or so. It is in different forms that it has come up, but it has peaked at this point in time, at least till now. So we know that in this clutter, we have to create a space for our brands, our voice, what we feel about, how to push our product clearly and connect emotionally or the right way to the customer. See, I was reading a paper which said that while emotional connect is very important, today the consumer is becoming smarter by the day. And he would also use rationality to actually take the decision in the end of the day. And if you go to the neurological sciences, it says emotional pathways are 6 times stronger than that of rational pathways. So that means anyway, he will be influenced significantly by what you tell, what stories you put across. But when it comes to decision making, very interestingly, the decision making was still a cognitive framework or a rational framework. So that means he will listen to you, but ultimately the decision making would be a more evolved process, which will be a combination of what story you told, what connect you created, and what ultimately matters to the consumer. So not that this summarizes exactly what we discussed, but in this cluttered space, technology is going to aid. That is the unequivocal point which is coming out, and technology is going to support to make sure you come out with different kind of content which may not be like 5-minute long or 3-minute long. It may be a 10-second clip, 5-second clip, but it will be able to do the job. Influencers have a big role. On top of it, if you see the content creation and the execution of that content, because of AI, ML, and a lot of technologies which are in place, will become perfection driven. So currently it may not be perfect, but in times to come, that is going to be having its own zenith. I'd like to thank my panel to be able to contribute towards this engaging topic for us, and I'll open the field to any questions coming from the arena right in front. Yeah, you have a mic? Can somebody help with the mic, please? We have like 2 minutes. You can take this one.
We have lots of mics here. Come. Take it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Gunjit.
Gunjit.
And in fact, it's very amusing how you actually opened the panel with a story of your own, like going to Gujarat and seeing a family. And like Mr. Vineeth just highlighted upon the fact that evocative, like emotional storytelling. So when it comes to causes, I find a lot of evocative emotional storytelling, like from platforms like Impact Guru, Donate Cart, like they tell a story of someone suffering, and then there's something like a call to action. So like Mr. Kamaljit just said, like that emotional response is much quicker, more impactful. So when it comes to your product, so what do you generally observe, like which digital platforms drive that conversion or sales from those evocative emotional messaging? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a question in it as well?
Yeah. Question like which digital platform, like comparatively Instagram or YouTube, from where you see maximum conversions happening as a result of this
Okay.
emotional
Thank you.
storytelling?
You want to take that?
I think it depends more on the power of the emotional connect in your idea, as well as how strongly it is connected to the functional delivery of the product, rather than on which platform it results in better conversions, etc. I think the bigger driver, the bigger thing that drives how powerfully an emotional payoff, as they say, or an emotional benefit, as they call it, works is a function of how strong that idea is and how strongly it resonates with the target consumer. For example, recently we had for one of our products, which is Fortune Atta, Chakki Atta, we had an emotional campaign. So basically, the way we think of it as a structure is that there is a product truth at the base of it. And then above the product truth is what is the functional benefit that the product offers. And above that is how do you envelop that functional benefit in a relevant and connected emotional payoff. So in this case, we talked to consumers across the country, and one of the pain points that was coming out was was kneading. Kneading was seen as a painful activity in roti making, especially in the south and the east, where rotis are a relatively more recent phenomenon. Whereas in the north and the west, where they have been making rotis for generations, but the homemakers still felt that, yeah, it is tough. I mean, we've taken it for granted now that we have to do it, but now that you say it, if I get a dough that is, get an atta that is easier to knead, then it will make my life a little easier. It's not a conscious felt need, but now that you say it, yeah, it will, I think it's something that appeals to me. So then, we ran some tests on the water absorption consistency of our Chakki Atta product and found it to be exceptionally consistent as well as of a very high order. And therefore, it actually resulted in a dough, in an atta that was easy to knead into a dough. So we wanted to layer this up into an emotion. So we said, so the thing that the agency came up with was, see, we know that दो वक्त की रोटी कमाना बड़ी मेहनत का काम है. We all know that दो वक्त की रोटी कमाना बड़ी मेहनत का काम है. लेकिन कम से कम दो वक्त की रोटी बनाना मुश्किल ना हो. At least let it be easy to make your roti when you come back after a long day of दो वक्त की रोटी कमाना. So I think the way it got executed, and then the beauty of a powerful emotional idea, and also we had a female protagonist in the ad, a police officer spending the whole day out on beat and then back to make back home with the husband, preparing dinner for the family. So I think the manner of execution and the power of the idea actually lends it to adaptations across mediums. It can become celebration of stories of women who are earning their दो वक्त की रोटी, and then at least घर में दो वक्त की रोटी बनाना मुश्किल ना हो. So a good idea can transcend geographies, except it couldn't go to the south because south में दो वक्त की रोटी नहीं होती, south में दो वक्त का चावल होता है. So that is the limitation of the campaign.
Because that is something which results into an immediate purchase decision. I haven't seen much use of storytelling in micro-moment marketing. I would like to know your experience and how you would like to use it in future.
I mean, a quick one, yeah, I think recently on Valentine's Day, the Swiggy Instamart rider got converted into a heart with a particular brand that was associated with love. So I think that you have people on the platform looking to make a purchase, and then for that entire day, the riders are actually the product and a heart, which is basically connected with the concept of love. So I think there are these kinds of examples of leveraging the moment, relating it to the brand story.
So I'm going to give an example of when I was working for BMW Group and we launched Mini Cooper in India. What we did was, an Uber just came about, right? For one full day, there were free mini rides on the Uber app. And it was a rocking success because of the number of requests we got for that and the number of stories which were put online because of that. So it in fact became a global case study.
So micro moments, we have been using at ITC for a very long time. And why did we continue to use it is because we saw significant amount of engagement translating into, these are not at scale, but they definitely shift the needle. Nothing is forced though. Initial days of our moment marketing used to be forced. चाहे वो इंडिया क्रिकेट में जीते तो नूडल्स भी वही करेगा, बिंगो भी करेगा, सनफीस्ट भी करेगा, आशीर्वाद भी करेगा. Everybody will create one piece of content around it. Today, over time, we have learned that process better, and hence we take up those brands which are relevant and can utilize those moments better. But it has been a very successful approach that we have taken over time. And social, of course, is the platform where it thrives best.
So I think, Gunjit, that will be the last remark, and after that we'll be concluding, so please.
Fantastic. So opening batsman and closing as well. So that's cool. So interesting question actually. And micro moments. So there's a supermarket close to where I stay in Mumbai. My son is 3.5 years old. He and I have this routine of going to that supermarket every weekend. Now he went there in front of the toothbrush aisle. He looked at a toothbrush which has a Spider-Man character. Within 5 seconds, he made up his mind that he's not going to move forward till we purchase this. It happened to be a Colgate toothbrush, so I told him I'll get it from office. Yahan kyun kharidna? But he dug his heels and he bought it there and then. So at the outset, it feels like it's a micro moment decision. Within 5 seconds, he made a decision. And it also feels like it's micro moment marketing because there was some communication on the shelf, so that would have triggered it. But the reality of the matter is that, decisions are not taken in micro moment. Decisions are taken based on several stimuli that you've been exposed to. And then memory triggers that happen. He's been consuming Spider-Man content at home for a pretty long time. He bought a few other franchise, merchandise of Spider-Man on Amazon. And then he saw this. So it seems like it's a micro moment decision based on micro moment marketing, but there's a lot that goes into play. And then, maybe because I'm closing this one, also connecting it back to that, hey, storytelling is not in a moment in time. Storytelling happens over a period of time. And that is the power of storytelling, that, there are lots of breadcrumbs that are being thrown in your head. And then eventually there'll be one moment which will pick all those breadcrumbs together, and then conversion will happen.
I'm happy it got answered. So once again, I'd like to thank the panel. Please join me in thanking, people on the left here for me. You could excuse me.
And thanks to you for
sure,
having us.
If you could